Welcome to our studies in Corinthians. We are still in the first chapter, and I am considering this chapter 1, verse 18 to all the way verse 31. So chapter 1, 18 to 31. In this passage, Paul is particularly defending the simplicity of the gospel, and he says the power of the gospel lies in the simplicity of the gospel. In the first century, a large number of people, those who accepted Christ, they were ordinary people, the regular people, the working class. In fact, many of them were from the low class, people not necessarily educated. But there were also some who were educated, there are some noblemen. But because Christianity in its simplicity was not very attractive, for the Jews, as William Barclay says, the Jews, for them, they were looking for signs, they were looking for miracles, they were looking for something extraordinary, not the simplicity of the gospel. And for the Greek, it was very difficult for them to comprehend how can someone who has died on the cross, who died like a human being, could be a Messiah, could be God. For them, they were looking for something very high, intellectual, the wisdom, something which is not so simple. So for them, Christianity did not carry much meaning or value to them. And so Paul says here in verse 22, Jews demand miraculous signs and a Greek looks for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than man's strength. We don't realize that sometimes in order to make our gospel very impressive to the intellectuals or those who are looking for signs, we add many times spices into our faith. So we want to glamorize our Christian faith, intellectualize it, and fill it with some kind of a mystery. So that's why you see our effort to have all these kinds of miraculous things happening. Why you think tele-evangelist is so successful or healing crusade is so successful. So that we want to impress on the people's mind that, Christianity can provide something which their religion cannot provide. And when we want to say that, we want to glamorize it. We want to make it much more, package it with much more attractive thing. So signs and wonders and miracles and intellectualism. The church is guilty of that, We put many layers of all this glamour in the church that the church can become so much intimidating. When you walk into the cathedral, when you look at the bishop and archbishop with all their glamorous clothes, it can become so intimidating that the simplicity of the gospel is somehow undermined. Paul is saying the same thing. The first century had the same problem, that the power lies in the simplicity of the gospel. And so in verse 30, he says, it is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus. It is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us wisdom from God. That is our righteousness, holiness, and redemption. Therefore, as it is written, let him who boast in the Lord. So, boast in the Lord. It is because of Jesus. Jesus is our righteousness, Jesus is our holiness, Jesus is our redemption, and he is our wisdom. In fact, he goes on to say, ask this question, where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him. With all our ability to do research and intellectual ability, We cannot find God on our own unless God Himself revealed to us. And so, looking and depending completely, absolutely on God, that's what Paul is emphasizing. And he reminds them that not many of you, he says, brothers, in verse 26, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. So don't camouflage, don't try to add spices, don't add all complex things, all these glamours to the simplicity of the gospel. But keep this gospel simple, proclaim this gospel simple, because the power lies in the simplicity of the gospel. May God help us to remember that and remain faithful to the truth, to the gospel that is given to us. God bless you and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.